And we are live. We'll give everybody a few minutes to join in here. I should be getting a notification here that we're live. On Facebook, live on YouTube. We'll give everybody
back feed.
Yeah, a little back feed, but it's not too terrible. I think it's catching it, so I think we're fine. That was probably because of the delay. I think once it picks it up, it's going to be fine. All right, so there we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Disney Nerds Podcast special Thursday night live stream. In a few minutes, tonight I've got Charlotte with me. In a few minutes, I'll bring on Disney Master Artist Joel Payne. We're going to have a good talk with him. You guys, I want you guys to bring any questions you may have to Joel and ask him anything you might want to ask him about his art. And he's involved in all kind of good stuff. So we're going to be bringing him on in just a few minutes. I'm getting the show shared out to all the groups right now. So while we're doing that, if you would please share the show.
Hey, Bradley. Hey, Lindsay. Hey, Edward. Hi, Scott. Hey, Marianne.
Thanks, everybody. Joining. We appreciate
us.
Come on in. Give me just a couple minutes here to get the show shared out to all the places we like to share to, and then we're gonna bring Joel on, and you guys can ask some questions.
How many of y'all looked at your calendar and went, "Wait a minute, it's Thursday. What? What's going on here?"
What are they doing? It's not. They're live on the wrong night.
Live with the Artist Thursday. New thing.
That'd be a brand new thing, huh?
It could be. There's so many great artists. And we just happen to know them.
I actually stopped, and me and Kim, when we were there in November, we were in the art store in Magic Kingdom, and there was a one piece sitting off the side on an easel, and it was a Haunted Mansion piece, and I'm like, oh man, that's wonderful. And I looked down at it, and it was Joel, and I'm like, I know him. I've chatted with him before. I said, that's so awesome that his is sitting out kind of on the side, kind of away from everybody else's.
Haunted Mansion piece is amazing.
It's very, very cool.
It's awesome. You're right, Ed. It's Walt's birthday, so a great night for us to be together.
Birthday. Joel has a lot of connections to Walt, so let's bring Joel in. Mr. Joel.
Hello. Hey, Disney nerds. I'm a Disney nerd, no doubt about that.
You're official now. You can have the card and everything.
Oh yeah, I'm a nerd from way back. I'm old school nerd. So I'm a nerd when we were actually nerds.
When it was not cool to get called a nerd, right?
Right. Now we're cool because we run the world, as you know.
That's right.
Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. I think we figured it out. You like all of our stuff. You know, you like it. You like everything we make. So
Joel, just tell us. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about you.
Well, I was a young child of 2. We can't go that far back. We can go back to when I was 5, though. When I was 5 years old, I was on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and I was on the ride with my mom for my birthday, and I remember it very vividly. This is the kind of a moment that changed my life. And I was on the ride with my mom on my birthday, and I looked up at my mom. I said, Mom, the robots, they look so real. And without hesitation, my mom said, sweetheart, those are the waiters. I was looking at the Blue Bayou, thinking that they were the robots. And she didn't hesitate. She didn't hesitate telling me that. Kind of ruined my fantasy there. But it didn't ruin it. It actually inspired me to want to become an Imagineer, because I realized at a very, very early age, at 5, that Disney had this uncanny ability to blur the line between fantasy and reality, and I couldn't tell what was real and what was fake. And that fascinated me, that idea of believable fantasy. And so right there, I told my mom, I'm going to be a famous Disney artist someday. And that is not exactly happened just yet, but I certainly am getting closer to it. When I go in the park, people notice that some people recognize me now. And, I just got in with the Disney parks as a special contract, and I'm doing a lot of attraction paintings. And I just released, for the 50th anniversary, the painting you were talking about, the Haunted Mansion disembodied painting, which is just taken Disneyland by storm. The 50th anniversary, I was right next to Kim Irvine, the park art director. Her mom played Madame Leota, and she plays her mom's part during the Christmas overlay. And she wanted one of the limited edition prints at the event, and I was more than happy to go and buy her one, just because I'm such a fan of her and what she's done for the company. But alas, they were sold out even before I got to it, and which is kind of funny that the park art director can't even get one of the limited edition. So it was really kind of where it all took off with the parks.
Have you had a chance have you signed up for Disney Plus yet?
I have. Absolutely. I was a first adopter. I knew all about it. I have friends that have helped build Disney Plus that are, producers and stuff on that. And, when The Mandalorian came out and I saw what they had done, I said, finally, I could start painting Star Wars again, because I'm just being honest. Sorry, yeah. Disney. I wasn't a massive fan of the last three films. I liked Force Awakens, and that was okay.
I love Rogue One, but the reason I was asking is because on Disney Plus, the Imagineering story.
Yeah.
And Kim Irvine is all in that, and it's lovely, wonderful.
Every episode interview,
right?
A lot about her mom and walking around parks and hearing her mom's voice come from the Haunted Mansion, and
right. Well, let me tell you about that. So all those people in the Imagineering story, just by complete dumb luck, I happen to be pretty good friends with all those people. So Alice Davis, she's a famous Imagineer. Her husband, Mark Davis, everybody knows. If you're a Disney nerd, you better know who Alice Davis is.
Sure.
She's a super sweet lady, probably the sweetest woman I've ever met connected to Disney. I just want to hug her all the time. She's such a cute, sweet lady. And, I know Bob Gurr very well. I've been to his house many times. We have had kind of an intermingling of ideas and stuff over the years. And I was the last guy to interview and hang out with Xavier Atencio before he passed away. And I was showing him the disembodied painting and kind of getting his approval on it and making sure that it was, it stood up to what maybe Walt would have approved and liked, so I got Bob, who of course designed the Doom Buggy, better known as the Omni Mover, and I got Raleigh, and I got Xavier, and they all saw the painting and they all gave their approval of it. And when Bob said, he's like, oh wow, look what this is very detailed. This is more than just a painting here that you got. And so when I heard Bob's reaction, that's all I kind of needed to know that I was on to something that I think the fans would like,
Right, for sure.
But and then I've worked with Kim over the years. I got to help build some Disney attractions, and we can talk about that. And I've art directed a Disney video game over the years. I've basically worked with Disney, since 1995. On and off throughout my career in the video game industry primarily. But Kim is just, she just has an insight, and she was around the Disney group, growing up, and
in the good days, she was
there. Yeah, in the good old days. So when Lisa, iWorks came out with the Imagineering story, the one thing that I was really happy that she did is, she was just very honest. There were some hiccups in the way that Imagineers built things, and there still are hiccups. We're seeing it happen, right in front of us. And, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to know that in a career that I have, having to wake up every day and figure out how can I entertain you? It's a high wire act. It's a risk. There's always a risk because, the changing tides of appetite as to what people are, satisfied with. For me, I've got a really good formula for how I achieve that goal. And one of them is, I'll go, I've got an annual pass to Disneyland. I'll go and I'll get in line with people, and I'll wear my Imagineering jacket. And inevitably somebody will strike up a conversation with me about the jacket. And it gives me an opportunity, because they'll ask what I do for a living if I'm still doing it. And I'll show them one of the work in progress paintings that I'm doing, and get that immediate reaction. So I look at the person's expressions and stuff, and I really kind of pay attention to are they just giving me lip service and like it, or do I get that wow? So if I get wow from like 90% of the people that are seeing it, then I know I've done something good. Otherwise, I go back and I rework it or keep working on it until I get that. So I guess you could say it's a soft open on artwork, just no different than what Disney does when they're testing out ideas and play testing with their testers and trying things out. But a large portion of the buying market for art are women, believe it or not. And it's because they're the ones that decorate the houses, guys, and they just do. You're not going to go out there and hang a Star Wars painting in the main living room without getting your wife's or girlfriend's permission. If it's a Disney thing, it seems like that's a lot of crossover there. But when it certain subjects, it's more man cave stuff, then it's a little more masculine than feminine. But with Disney, it's just got such a massive wide appeal that you can hang a painting like what I'm doing above a mantle, and anybody coming into your house are like, oh, you're a Disney person too, just like me. Everybody gravitates around that. So it's kind of the bond that connects us all is Walt and his amazing creations. So I always stick to the old school stuff, though. I don't do a lot of new school anything really, because I'm kind of a diehard Walt fan. So it's hard for me to kind of connect with a lot of the newer things.
So how did the relationship between you and Disney first strike up? Let me pause you just so everybody know that's watching. If you have a question for Joel, please throw it in the comments, and I'll be happy to pass along your question directly to Joel.
Yeah, ask me anything. I've worked in the video game industry, the movie business. I worked on Jurassic Park and Titanic. Maybe you heard of those small films, and Flintstones. I worked on that movie. Also worked as a director on Max Steel, Starship, and a prop guy on Starship Troopers Roughnecks, which was a really popular CG cartoon. I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of games over 28 years of working in the video. I don't work in the video game industry anymore. I kind of retired from that, and I'm focused on the Disney stuff these days. But back in the day, all the way up until 2008, I was art directing video games. So those games would be Elder Scrolls Online. I was the establishing art director for that entire world, which was a massive undertaking. And Silent Hill Homecoming, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, which was the first adventure game that really was successful. They had an adventure game back in the day, and it was a complete train wreck. But Shaolin Monks was a massive success with a very tiny team against impossible odds. One of the very first games I worked on back in 1993 was Heroes of Might and Magic. It's now on its I think it's 11th sequel this year, or something like that. Yeah. And to answer your question, how did I get involved with Disney initially? Well, anybody that goes to wishpictures.com can see my whole life story. Michael Caine, the famous actor, voiced over that, which is kind of a cool little detail. Most people wouldn't know that. So a lot of people don't know who Michael Caine is anymore. But he, in there, I talk about how I got to work on the Virtual Jungle Cruise, which was a big deal for me. I fought very hard to get on that project. I was working in the video game industry, and right across the street, this company called Angel Studios was secretly doing this project, and they bought out a warehouse, and they built it inside the warehouse. So for the entire summer, I got to ride this attraction the whole summer. It was a really good job. Yeah. And what made it even better is they put me in responsible for creating the track. And if anybody went to Disney Quest Florida and rode the virtual Jungle Cruise, the experience was really, really cutting edge at the time. And we had a reality engine, which was the size of a refrigerator. That's how big the computer was that ran it.
Wow.
And they just retired it 2 years ago or a year ago, something like that, not too long ago. Your phone could now run that attraction. That's how far we've come. But to know that this virtual attraction has had, from 1995 and just a few years ago, has had that kind of longevity, gives me a lot of pride that we did it right, and we did it to Disney standards, and we were sitting right alongside all of the original Imagineers that were treading new ground and breaking new ground and trying to do something innovative and I truly think that it was. So basically what the people that don't know what the virtual Jungle Cruise was, it was basically like an airbag, and it had 6 compartments in this giant airbag, 6 different compartments that would fill up with air independent of each other, simulating a rapids experience, water. And we strapped a giant, 6-man or 8-man raft to it, a real raft. We had anchored it to this giant airbag. And then we had oars, and on the ends of the oars, the Imagineers got roller wheels from roller skates and put it there so that when they stroke across the pad, we had sensors in that pad in the airbag that would recognize that paddle stroke. So we had a massive screen in front of you that was the CG VR rapids, and you were actually paddling down and choosing which leg of the river you wanted to go to. And we had so many different fingers going off of this thing that some people were very good and they figured it out and they got all the way to the bottom. That's what we figured out in testing, and we had to figure out how to get them back to the top, and we just basically created a cave and teleported you back there seamlessly, and you didn't even know. So it pops you back to the top, and then you could take another leg down the river, a cave or a mudslide or something like that. And so every single bump in that, every roll, every dip, every waterfall that you went over, that was me. And the best part is nobody told me what to do. We had a general layout of generally how it would go, but when it came to the little nuances of how things went, I had complete control over that experience. So there was a lot of rides. There's an homage in there to Big Thunder. If you've been on Big Thunder in Disneyland Anaheim, there's this moment, and even Tony talks about it. He was my boss's boss at the time working on the virtual Jungle Cruise, so we got access to Tony a little bit. But there's this moment in Big Thunder where you're going, and then it looks like you're going to hit this rock, and then you dip down, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you rode the virtual Jungle Cruise and you go down the ice section, there's this section where you see this giant ice. It's just like Big Thunder, and you see it just as you're about to hit it. You go over the waterfall and you dip down in underneath it, and it's stuff like that that just gets me going. It's opportunities like that is like, wow, this is official. It may be virtual, but it's official, And, we got to ride that thing, and then it went to Disney Quest, and it was a massive success. It was one of the most ridden attractions there. And as things were cycling through in that little virtual park that they did, they kept ours all those years. So very, very proud of it.
I remember riding it.
Yeah. We had caustics in there that simulated lighting, water, but we also, in testing, what you didn't know, is we actually had spritzers that would hit you in the face when you hit the water. The problem is, we quickly realized that it was making everything wet and soggy and fungal, grimy, slimy. Yeah. But man, while those things were on, it's if we had a full 360 kind of, many years later, I got to work on something that became Soaring Over California Adventures. We can talk about that too. But if we'd had a dome projection system where your peripheral vision was obscured, I really truly think that would have been a major long-lasting attraction, and that could have been a park in itself doing experiences just like that in all of them, because I think simulations. I mean, look at Smuggler's Run. I mean, it's basically all it is.
Right.
You know, it's a dome, and you're in a cockpit, and it's really nice boat, but it's a lot better than the little blow-up boat we had. But nevertheless, it's the same concept, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Ann Seifert wants to know, what did you do on Titanic?
I was a set painter. I was non-union. I didn't get credited. I actually almost got beat up by some people on there because they found out I was non-union. But I had a friend that snuck me on the set, you know, and tried to get me some extra money at the time. And all of if you see the scene where she's nude, getting sketched. By the way, that was Jim that did the sketch. Yeah, James Cameron, as we called him Jim. All the gold that was in the background there, I had to do all that. And unfortunately, you know, when I finished all that really intricate paint work, James came in and said, it's not gold enough. It's what kind of gold paint did you use? We needed this to be really popping, and we had to actually get real high-end gold paint and paint it all over again.
Oh,
So
wow.
there was that. I also held up the production. Yeah, I held it all up. I got in trouble. I went to go use the restroom, and lo and behold, he called for touch-up paint, which was my job. And you know, the spit scene where they're spitting over the railing. Apparently, they had been leaning on the railing a lot, and they scraped it up, and he wanted to have it touched up. And I was nowhere to be found, and they're calling paint, and eventually, you know, Jim went out and got a bucket of paint and painted it himself, and then later reamed me. Like, he's like, dude, if you're going to be on this project, you got to be available to me. This is supposed to be a brand new ship. Brand new. It doesn't have scratches.
No
it doesn't have marks. It's brand new. So you got to be available to fix this. So so like 20 minutes were lost because of me on that. It probably cost the company a lot of money.
I got to know what you did on Jurassic Park, because we are huge Jurassic Park fans in my family. Oh, Alex wants to know what you did in Jurassic Park
Alex
too.
wants to know that, but also, Alex, did you ever get Kevin Nash? Alex said he thought you were Kevin Nash.
No, I'm not Kevin. I never get Kevin Nash. No, I don't. But I actually get the dude from Metallica, you know, the lead singer of Metallica. I get that Hatfield or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I love Metallica. I get that from time to time. So how did I get started? That's probably the best way to answer the Jurassic Park thing, because it's a kind of a funny story. So, you know, when I was in junior college, I started going through the film and theater department, television department. I wanted to learn how to do movies. And so I shot films, and I won the film festival there a couple of years in a row. And I got really excited about my future as a director. And, you know, I wanted to be a junior Spielberg like everybody else. And I got a book on who's who in Hollywood at the bookstore, and looked up Amblin, because I'd been on the tour at Universal and gone by Amblin many times. Every time we went by the tour, going by Amblin, they never mentioned Amblin. I'm like, you guys, you don't want to talk about where Spielberg lives. I got it. You don't want anybody to jump out the tram and go see Spielberg. I got it. I was so naive at the time. Not that would ever happen, but that's what I was thinking. I'm like, how can I get off this tram and sneak into Amblin? So I got a book on who's who. I swear to God, who's who in Hollywood, and I found Amblin listed, and I found all the names and a picture of Deborah Newmeyer. And if she ever sees this video, she'll be so embarrassed. But Deborah Newmeyer, and she was a producer, and I snuck in to the back lot through the ET attraction. There was a little queue there, and there was a part in the queue, and all you had to do was hop over the little railing, and you'd be in the back lot. And there was no security there at the time. This is long before, you know, 9/11 happened. So, you know, all bets were off at the point. So I hop over the thing, and I dressed in a suit, really nice, and I had my movie that I won the film festival with, a little short film, about 5-minute film. And I went back there, and I went through 3 security guards, 2 assistants, and a secretary to Deborah Newmeyer. You know, I got to the desk inside, and I was checking in, as they said, at the desk. And Deborah Newmeyer's like, her assistant gets on the phone with me and says, Mr. Payne, we don't know how you got back here, but we're going to have to escort you off the lot. And we're really sorry about this. And, we don't know what you're about. They had a camera on me. I didn't know. But and Deborah wasn't in the office at the time. Why? Because she was walking out into the lobby at that very moment that her assistant was telling me I couldn't see her and I was going to be escorted. They had called security. Okay. But I had the picture of Deborah Newmeyer. So I'm like, Deborah, how you doing? And she's like, do I know you? And I'm like, no, no, not really. You came to my school. I had to turn off my alarm there. You came to my college and you did, because I knew she spoke at different places, and I said you came and you inspired me, and I'm not looking for anything. I just want you to look at I work back here, and I just want you to look at my film and give me some good advice on where I should, what classes I can take. I've only got one more year. Give me some advice. You get great advice. It's like, I've got some time with my lunch right now. I was going to lunch. You can come with me. And we went back into Steven Spielberg's private viewing room, this little mini theater, and there was like a Jaws coming up out of the well outside the property. I'm like, Jaws right there outside the well. I was having panic attacks. She saw the film and she was laughing at it. It was a comedy. She thought, this is great. And she said, well, I'm not in a position to hire people. I might be a producer here, but I'm not the one that ultimately goes out and hires.
It's good, the comedy, because you had me worried.
Yeah, she's like, but she said, what you should do is get a job at Audiences Unlimited. They have a spot back here where they seat live shows, and at least you can get on the back lot without getting arrested. And I'm like, that might be a good idea. And so I went over right after meeting with her. I went straight to Audiences Unlimited, filled out an application, and I got a job as a page. And, got an opportunity. I was about to work on the Chevy Chase show because he had a talk show at the time. And that was one of the things that was popping up. But I started working on all the lots, Disney lot, Sony, Universal, Warner Brothers, because Audiences Limited catered to all of the live shows. And anybody that wants to break into Hollywood, that's a great way to get in there, because, you want to be a cameraman, you make friends with the cameraman, and you learn that trade. You want to be a director, you make friends with the director. You want to be a writer, you make friends with the writer. So it's really kind of a smorgasbord of getting the foot in the door to figuring out where you want to go, what kind of career you want to have. And it really opened up my eyes to what I wanted to do. So how did I get on Jurassic Park? Well, I shot this 35 millimeter film, cost me a pretty penny, and I swept the film festival that year. I won every single thing. And so I was really confident, But when I went back, I'd been on the lot now that I had access, and they had heightened security because of me and what I had done the previous year. So they closed the gates, and not only was there a man at the gate, but they had closed the entrance and had a man at a second gate. So I couldn't even walk down the street without being stopped by a guy that was in a little booth. And then there was another gate, a giant gate that was closed. It used to be open. You might be able to get past the booth, can't get past the closed gate. So, but I dressed up in a business suit that day, and I said, this is my day. I'm going to figure out how to talk my way through all the security. And I'm walking, and from the parking lot that they had built, a brand new parking lot they had built, I had to walk several blocks to Amblin, and I'm trying to formulate what sort of a lie, what sort of a story I'm going to tell these people. I don't recommend doing this anymore post 9/11. You'll get shot and arrested. Yeah, and probably not necessarily in that order. But at the time, this is still before 9/11, I was walking along and I see this guy dressed in a suit just like me, much older guy, looked like somebody important. And I'm walking on one side of the street and he's walking on the other, and we're walking down and we're walking in the same direction, and he's making all the same turns I'm making. And he's like, are you following me? And I'm like, are you following me? He's like, well, where are you going? And I'm like, well, I'm going to Amblin. He's like, so you are following me because that's where I'm going. I'm like, well, let's walk together. And as we're walking together, I thought, there's force in numbers, he was going to go right in, and I just walk in right with him. And that's exactly what I did. I pretended to be with him and walked right past everybody, right at the last second. And when I got to the front desk, to my surprise, after checking this man in, the secretary says, "Mr. Payne, Deborah will see you now." I'm like, okay. I'm like, what? And so she's like, "Joel, I've been looking for you since last year. What happened to you?" I said, "Looking for me? Why?" She's like, "Because you got me in trouble with Steven. Because I told him what had happened. You know, he wasn't here that day, but I told him later." He's like, "What? You let him go? Don't you know that's how I broke in to Hollywood? By sneaking off of a tram, taking over a janitor's closet, wearing a business suit and pretending I was an executive. You didn't know that? You might have just let go the next Spielberg. Come on." So she was getting a little flack, and it was a little kind of joke, like I was like Back to the Future with him, And she said, what movie you got this time?" So I showed her the movie, and she said, "Well, obviously I can't let you go this time. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to start at the bottom. I want to work my way up in the industry. So I'm an artist. What could I do as an artist?" She's like, "Well, can you paint? Can you sculpt?" And I said, "Yes." So they got me in the prop department in the back lot of Universal Studios, and I started carving, skeletons and stuff like that. And the dock sign that you see, I did like eight of those things, and I didn't know why I needed 8. And then I saw the movie, and they ran over the sign, so that kind of tells you everything as to why they needed. I wanted that. I wanted to take that home, and they wouldn't let me have one. It's funny because that sign showed up in the Jurassic World, that exact sign. So I'm like, I'm still alive. I'm still relevant. All these but it was really just kind of grunt work and getting my hands dirty. And that actually led to me working on Flintstones, where I was carving things and working on with polyfoam and carving foam to make it look like rock and stone. And after I worked on that film, I kind of, very quickly realized that wasn't the industry for me, because it was really there's a lot of nepotism. The 3F rule, as they say, friends, family, and French words that I won't say in front of children, that will get you through the film industry. And I just didn't have a lot of friends that would go from project to project. So I saw the video game industry, which at the time was just, again, it had like 16 colors at the, when I first got into the video game industry, it was like 16 colors. And then finally, CG and 3D was coming around. And when I went to go see the movie, I thought, wow, when the video games look as good as these dinosaurs, maybe I could be Spielberg in the video game industry if I got in now. So I started looking for a career in the video game world, and I managed to, that's a whole nother crazy story, where I took over a Amiga store with my friend who owned it and started developing my own game, because nobody would hire me. So I didn't have an experience. So I just started making my own game, and an art director that was working for New World Computing, came in and saw what I was doing on one of the computers that was for sale. And she said, "I thought I had every game Amiga put out. What's this?" And I said, "It's mine." She's like, "What? You're doing this by yourself? All of that?" I'm like, no, the guy behind the counter, he's programming it. And like, "You do realize it takes like a team of like at least 30 to do a video game, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, whatever. I can do it all." And she's like, "Well, geez, if you ever need a job, I'll have to come to you, because, And then like a month later, she said, "Hey, we've got an opening. Give us your portfolio." And I said, "What do I need in it? What's a portfolio?" I had no clue. I was so naive. And on my 21st birthday, John Van Cannigan, who was the owner of New World Computing, I came in, I was just such a ball of fire, with so much personality and spunk, as he put it.
Chutzpah.
He said, "Joel, I just have no clue if you're talented enough to work in this company or not, but I'm going to hire you anyway, just because I want to see what you're going to do. You're just such a fireball. I want to see what's going to happen." You got so much passion, man. And he hired me. He says, "What kind of salary do you want?" Now, at the time, I said, "Well, anything over $8 an hour is pretty good." I was so naive. It's like, "I'll just give you maybe $28,000 a year. We'll start you at. I'm like, wow, that sounds like a lot of money. You know, it was 1993. To me, it was a ton of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a ton of money. It was like way more money than yeah, I was a kid. So I started writing music for the company, and I started doing artwork, and then I started game designing, and on Heroes of Might and Magic, I threw my hat in on a lot of game mechanics. I was a big fan. If anybody knows Heroes of Might and Magic, which is it's a pretty big game in the PC world, the people that are old timers, they know it. I was a big fan of Battle Chess, which was this animated Amiga game where the chess pieces come alive like the Star Wars chess game, and they just smash each other. It's great. And Defender of the Crown, which was a really beautiful artistic game back in the day. It was an adventure game.
I know that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was Amiga came out. It was the first time that computers had actually had great graphics and really amazing sound. Long before Apple or any PC had come along, the Commodore 64 was killing it. And then the Amiga came out, and it was really good. So that's where my love of digital art came from. I started doing art at that level. And so I took Defender of the Crown and I took Battle Chess and incorporated those ideas into that original, the core mechanics of the game. And all these years later, they still have that same core mechanic in like version 8 or 9 or whatever it's on now. So again, I had some really good instincts in the video game industry that have kind of stood the test of time. So
I
been lucky, very lucky.
Very.
Our other co-host Ed commented in the comments that he had Battle Chess, which does not surprise me. He's our computer nerd for sure.
Come on, it was Star Wars chess, but
he teaches.
That's
what he does. He teaches he teaches a computer class in high school. So that's
I mean, who didn't love that game? To see everybody wanted to see chess pieces battle themselves out, and when Star Wars did it, I'm like, when's the video game coming out? And I guess I don't know what the history of Battle Chess is, but I can suspect that they probably tried to get the Star Wars license and they wouldn't give it to them. So they said, forget you, we're going to do it with Knights and then Harry Potter, picked up on that, all those years later.
Wizard's Chess.
Yeah, Wizard's Chess. That's what they call. No, it's Battle Chess, kids. It's Battle Chess.
Then Star Wars licensing was hard to come by. Now you can probably license Star Wars for just about anything if you get the money to pay them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I signed a contract. I should say, Angels signed a contract that we were working with the Imagineers. We couldn't tell anybody that we were building the ride because everybody's supposed to think that everything's built by Disney, and that's just not the case at all. Yeah. The Imagineers gave me a jacket for a reason because we were doing exactly what they were doing, and so they honored the entire team by calling us Imagineers, and rightly so because we were doing exactly what they would do. It was just an outside company doing that, and a lot of things have been made. Like for example, the Millennium Falcon that's at Galaxy's Edge. I believe there's a Chinese company that built the giant vehicles. There's other people that make the magic for Disney, and that's a good thing. I think it gives them perspective, and it makes it more cost effective when you've got other people that may not necessarily know exactly how to do what you're trying to do, and they've already done it. And one of those is in 1999, I worked on this project called Oceania, which was the first dome projection system for the 1999 Lisbon's World's Fair.
Just going where kind of Ed asked kind of about your involvement, kind of like in Soarin'. So is this
So let me explain. So that's exactly where we're going next. So how does that relate to Imagineering? Well, the dome projection system was created by another company, not Disney, and they had this beautiful system, and it was kind of a breakthrough new thing. And I happened to be a lead on the project where we designed a fly-through. It was all CG. When CG was just, again, we just come off of the virtual Jungle Cruise, and so we were taking that knowledge and applying it to this new thing, and it was all based off of Atlantis, the story. So we were going to go see Atlantis and these alien creatures that were around it. And it was the first time that I was told that I had to go get a passport because I was going to Lisbon. I mean, what a great gig, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To have a company pay for you to go see the World's Fair. I mean, I felt like Disney. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to the World's Fair. Now, Disney was in four World's Fairs, if I know my Disney history right. And the reason why Disney went into those fairs was to show, if you watch the Imagineering story, and it's true, to show that Disney Imagineers had chops, that they can compete with the world's best and show something innovative. So here I was with this opportunity to work on another really amazing attraction that was breakthrough in the virtual realm. And I got my passport. It cost me a small fortune because I had to expedite it. So it cost me a pretty penny to get that. And then right as we got everything done, now we didn't have a physical attraction that would lift you up, the erector set thing that was ultimately added to it. That came with Disney and those guys. But, I was just about to go. And then they said, Joel, you're not going. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I had my case all packed up. I was ready to go. I don't get to go. They said, well, no, we had the A team went and people are throwing up. People, thank God there's linoleum because all I had was a railing. And imagine you've got this massive dome, soaring over California Adventure-sized dome, and you just have a railing to hold on for the people in the front, but the people in the back, nothing. You're holding onto the shoulder of the person looking at this giant thing in front of you. And I was just flying through that thing so quickly as if it was a flight simulator. And boy, man, that really just screwed up a lot of people. And there was a lot of people. It was like the Goonies, It was the Goonies scene where one person throws up and then the other person's throwing up. And throwing up everywhere. So you're staying, Joel. You're staying because you have to re-render the fly-through and slow that stuff down, slow it way down. So my job was to figure out how far we could bank and how fast we can go, and what kind of visual complexity you can have to the scene without making people throw up. And so I had to re-render the scene this fly-through that I had built. And then later, the rest is history. Disney is using that technology, and they added a physical thing to it. And that was a good thing because it's the thing that we were missing. Because anytime you get motion sick, it's because your inner ear doesn't line up with what you're seeing.
Right.
So you don't feel what you're seeing. And when you don't feel what you're seeing, your body's like, oh, there's something going on here. And that's what makes you nauseous. So we took, because when I was working with the Virtual Jungle Cruise and we had Tony at our disposal, Tony having worked on Star Tours, they figured out very early on that they could use that flight simulator base. And as long as it's really lining up with what you're seeing, you're not going to get sick. So they worked out all of that. So our Rapids attraction, it never really lined up perfectly, but it was enough there was so much kind of confusion on the simulator that you didn't get sick from it because it was just so all over the place. But when you see something and you're flying through like Superman and you got no movement, it's really does a number on you. So I missed out on going to Lisbon.
My wife cannot ride Star Tours, or especially
and some people are sensitive to that ride. And the best thing to do if you ever ride a simulator, because there's a lot of simulators now out there, especially with Disney, Universal does nothing but simulators where you're getting spit on every attraction. I hate that, by the way. Universal, what are you doing? Seriously? You got to get spit on every attraction. I got glasses. I got to clean out the glasses, and now I can't see the ride. So cheap novelties don't work in Disneyland. So Disneyland doesn't spit in your face so much, but they've got really great simulators. They're the best in the world. And what you're going to see with this next, crown jewel attraction in Galaxy's Edge, it was going to blow people's minds. I mean, it's just going to be heart-pounding, mind-blowing. Best attraction in attraction history, hands down. And it's got movement in there. So
people watching, we have video of Rise of the Resistance on our YouTube channel.
It's like, wow.
One of our co-hosts, Sam, is down there for the past couple days for the media event, and Lisa both got to experience that attraction yesterday. And I'm trying to stay away from some of the details because
you don't want to see it. You want to feel the experience first out. You don't want to get ruined.
And I've seen some still shots and stuff from inside the ride.
Wow.
But I don't want.
It's unbelievable. It's hard to believe. Like you don't watch videos. If you're out there, don't.
I don't.
It's like trying to watch a roller coaster through your smartphone. Really? Don't do that. Don't blow it for yourself. Go and experience it the way that the Imagineers intended. And I'd like to say that, because I could be critical about Smuggler's Run. It's very easy. A PlayStation VR could probably upstage the interactivity of that attraction, if I'm being blunt.
Oculus Quest could blow it out the water.
Blow it out. I mean, look, I have a PlayStation VR. I leaned against the table I thought was there, fell on my butt. They have in the Star Wars game that they've got, you can actually sit in the cockpit of an X-Wing and I can look around. I could touch the buttons. All the buttons work. And I could see my R2 unit behind me in 360, and I'm shooting. And when I thought, I'm going to drive the cockpit I'm going to fly the Millennium Falcon. I'm going to shoot at things. Did you really think that you were going to be holding a button and closing your eyes and not caring what you hit? No, you didn't think I'm going to hit a button and close my eyes. You thought, no, I'm going to be, like Luke. Right. That's what I thought.
Right.
And and I don't know why they didn't do that, because there was some issues when I got to art direct Disney's Atlantis, the video game, with Don Hahn. Very quickly, we were told you can't have guns, you can't shoot things. So we're gonna turn these into bubble guns, and we're gonna slime people. And I'm like, oh, Disney.
They don't even use the guns on Jungle Cruise anymore.
Well, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it then. Don't be half foot in and half foot out on Pirates of the Caribbean, where you're, when you're politically correcting something and you're, how do we empower women because you're offended by the bride scene? How do we empower them by giving a woman a rifle and having her rob all the white citizenry of their wealth?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't have guns and shoot back.
Well, it's interesting too is that it's interesting they take it away from the theme parks, but they don't do it in the movies.
Yeah, and I don't mean to criticize Disney, but it's like the rules don't seem to make sense to a lot of people, and I think that the audience is savvy enough to recognize those kind of hiccups in logic.
It doesn't.
It's a fine line, It's a fine line,
Same logic across all fields. I mean, it's just it's a little different. I agree.
It's a fine line, but I'm not one of those guys that as much as I absolutely love Disney and I owe Disney my career and my everything that I do is Disney. I'm a massive Disney fan, and I'm a huge fan of the Imagineers, and I love Kim Irvine and everything she's done for the park. There's a lot of things, but I'm not one of those company guys that isn't going to criticize. Walt Disney wanted people to criticize. One little story that I was told by an Imagineer who worked on Pirates said that Walt was walking through the Blue Bayou section when there wasn't any water, and he saw a janitor sweeping up in there, and he's like, hey, you've been in here a lot. What do you think's missing? And he's like, well, I'm from the Bayou, and you got this nice swamp, but you don't have any lightning bugs. Well, the next day he had his Imagineers working on lightning bugs, and that's why that's in there, because of a janitor that gave Walt a criticism.
That was
You couldn't imagine that ride without the lightning bugs.
Exactly.
That whole area of the bayou is just beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that if I'm going to criticize Galaxy's Edge, and what the Imagineers are doing now, as much as I think it's a work of art, it's certainly beautiful. You have to think that Pirates and Haunted Mansion, at least the stuff in Haunted Mansion, because I'm a member of, as a member of the Magic Castle, I know how those effects. You could do those effects in your living room now. It's not that those things are difficult. During Halloween, I had a full apparition that was, 5 feet inside my doorway, because I know how to do rear projection and Pepper's Ghost. I know how to do it as good as Disney. And so when you're upstaged, by an attraction that was built with techniques that were done, that have been around since Magic was created, and you got $2 billion to play with, and you have the response that people gave you.
Well,
you have to kind of wonder, maybe they didn't think it through all the way, but
I would say this. Have you been to Pandora yet?
I haven't been. I've never been to Disney World, and a couple reasons. As a Disney fine artist, I have to pay my way to get out there. They don't. There's a lot of artists, and they all want to go.
Sure.
So I have to cover my costs, and until I can actually make it a profitable. I just started with the park, so until I can get out there and have a big fan base that I'm coming, it doesn't make sense to go out there just yet. So I haven't actually seen Disney World, and from all accounts from people that have told me, people like the nostalgia of this is Walt's park, Disneyland, and
sure.
And every single light bulb and tree, he planted it. He knew where it went.
And I've never been to Disneyland.
Yeah, so I mean, but I did do a painting connected to the Disney World Haunted Mansion, and that's doing really well over there. And I had to do it from photographs because I've never actually been there. But for people that grew up there, that's their mansion, that's their experience, and I wanted to cater to that.
The point I was going for was, in Pandora, there's 2 attractions.
Mm-hmm.
There is Flight of Passage.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been on Rise of the Resistance, but I can tell you Flight of Passage is the best attraction I've ever been on in my life.
Yeah.
You literally feel like you're flying on the back of a Banshee.
Yeah.
But the secondary ride is called Navi River Journey.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful inside.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Same with Smuggler's Run. I mean, the interiors are incredible.
It's a boat ride.
Yeah.
So that's my thing about Smuggler's Run is it never was, and I think people judge it harshly because it was the first attraction to open up, and when Galaxy's Edge opened up, that's what was there, and they're like, well, this is it. But it's the Navi River Journey of Galaxy's Edge. It was never designed to be the e-ticket attraction in that area.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but let me just point out that Tomorrowland is probably the most antiquated. Even Walt struggled with trying to keep that relevant. And yet I think there's like 5 attractions connected to it, because you got Utopia, you got the monorail goes by it, the People Movers at one point, you had, Star Tours, you got the Buzz attraction, you got Space Mountain, and then you've got, the meet and greets that are in there. And so you've got a lot of attractions in there. And how many stores? 2. And how many restaurants? 2. So the attraction to store and food ratio is huge in compare. And how many stores are in the 14 acres? Well, it's all stores. It's like a giant strip mall, mostly selling stuff with literally nothing to do for children. Nothing. Like what do little kids do? Little kids, nothing. So it was built for teenagers to go in there and spend money, and that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It was built for me and you. It was not even.
But look at even the cantina. It's like when you thought cantina, you didn't think, oh, I'm going to have to wait in a very long line, even though I've got reservations, only to be sat next to a complete stranger in a very tight cubicle where I'm having to pay for a very expensive drink that numbs my mouth so I can't even taste it.
And I have a time limit.
Yeah, and there's no singer, there's no alien band performing because they don't have any space. There's no dancer in there. I mean, where's the dancers? Where's the life? We've got Pee Wee Herman recycled robot in there that nobody remembers.
Everybody remembers DJ Rex.
Yeah, but it's not connected to any Star Wars movie.
No, true.
So. And the Wookiee doesn't really look like the Wookiee. And where's the alien life in that planet? I saw a little bit of interactions with stormtroopers and a little bit of interactions with Rey and a little bit of interactions with Chewie, but it doesn't look like Chewie. And the one attraction that's in there, in my opinion, isn't even as good as Star Tours, because Star Tours has all these divergent options. There's a lot of rewritability. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that rewritability. And they better come up with a lot of alternatives in that attraction quick.
I agree about rewritability.
And by the way, if I was playing mock Imagineer for a little bit, because everybody can armchair this, I'll just throw this out to your viewers, and you tell me if this would be something, if I was the Imagineer and I'd given you this experience, if this is something you would have wanted. Imagine going to Star Wars land, and you've got Jabba the Hutt, and you've got a fully articulated animatronic, full-size Jabba, but you do it like Turtle Talk, so there's a living person that's actually puppeteering it and talking to you, interacting with you. And maybe you could put on a cloak. Maybe you could put on Boba Fett's outfit or a helmet, and it's a meet and greet where you can have an audience with him. And maybe when you get to him, you're standing on a trap door that vibrates, and you can hear the Rancor below you, right? And maybe if you want, that trap door can open up, and you slide down, and you're in the Rancor pit, and then you see the Rancor, full sized, right there, and you're in the pit.
I mean, I would love that.
Yeah, like who wouldn't want? I'd want an audience with.
I want that so much.
I want to talk to Jabba. I got things to say to him. I got moments. I want a picture with that thing. Talking to me.
I don't know about the sustainability of that one though. That's more of a personalized experience. I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
but I think Disney realized with Star Wars they were missing a huge opportunity to sell high-end toys.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I want that R2-D2. I want that lightsaber. Those are great things.
I went and built a lightsaber. It was one of the best experiences I've had in Disney. Was building a lightsaber in Hobby's workshop.
But there was a Luke Skywalker. I don't know if it was authorized or not, but it had the crystal in it, and it separated apart and everything, and it lights up and it swishes, and it very simple for like $100. And it's out there, You don't have the experience, but you can still get the thing that you will just eventually just put on the wall and never really use.
I use
so well, if you're out there and you're a cosplayer, this is an important thing, but these are important things. But for me, I just want more. I want more interactivity with people. I want just like Knott's Berry Farm. When I go to Knott's Berry Farm, the cast members, when you're in the Western section, they pretend like they're the people. It's like Westworld. I want that Westworld experience. If I'm going to
Galaxy's Edge in Walt Disney World twice so far. I went once in September, and then we were there in November. And I will tell you, when we were there in November, we noticed a lot more of the characters walking around, and a lot more of them doing shows. Where they pick a kid, and there's like a First Order officer, and Kylo Ren comes up, and it's a whole production in front of one of the spaceships, and that everybody stopped what they were doing to go watch this, and they were inducting this little kid into the First Order, and he was telling his parents, enjoy him today because this is his last day, and Kylo Ren force chokes the military guy, and I've seen more and more of that. I've seen, and when we were leaving,
that's what they need. They need stuff like that to get more of that.
More and more of that as it kind of settles in. I don't think they need to
why can't we see C-3PO and R2-D2? These are robots that live that maybe they're not in the time period or whatever, but we could see those. If we could see the Wookiee, why can't we see these other characters walking around that I would absolutely love to interact with? I've just never, you know what I mean? Like those are good characters that they last. Maybe Vader's gone in the timeline, and all the classic characters that you fell in love with are gone. But R2's around, unless they blow him up and they kill him off like they did.
Find out in the run
on Solo. God forbid they do that. Please don't blow up those characters. Don't.
These alien species. I mean, there's so many. There's
so many. Like, why can't I just have guys walking around with the alien suitcases as they?
Yes.
Yeah. So just give me an alien. I want to talk to an alien. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's what I expected. A guy in full makeup, full prosthetics.
I did too.
I want that, Disney. Now, I don't want to be critical about Galaxy's Edge and talk about Imagineering the whole time. I mean, I came to talk about the artwork primarily, but look, I have experience working with the Imagineers. I know all the old guys, the Bob Gurr and all the original Imagineers. I know what their thoughts are on these things, and they would be the first ones to tell you that Walt wanted criticism. He was the toughest critic, and if you're doing everything right, you don't have anything to worry about. It's the things that you're doing wrong that you want to figure out real quick and improve those things.
Walt's word was always to plus it. So what's no matter how great it is, how do we take it to the next level? So
I think they got the tablecloth there. Like the tablecloth and the plates are set. I just want the meal. We're missing the meal that I can consume and go and bite and savor.
Yes.
That's what I'm missing there. And I won't do any attraction painting connected to that land until I start seeing that people are really bragging about that thing. And there are people that are bragging about it primarily because it's beautifully lit.
Yeah.
And it really is fully immersive. No doubt. You really do feel like you're on another planet. But it's missing all of the little things that I think Disney's known for. The real people, the performers that you see in the other lands.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but some of that stuff is going away, and I think you'll see more.
Budget.
It's budget, and because live people cost live money, and
yet when they did a survey, they found out that these performers, just the singers that perform with instruments, have more entertainment value than a lot of the old dark rides. So
sure.
Yeah, I mean, because you're going to get a new feeling. You're going to get a new feeling every time you see these performers.
You see it with the citizens of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And Hollywood Studios. They've gotten rid of a lot of those guys. There's still some around, but they've gotten rid of a lot of them. You see it with a lot of the acts that were around World Showcase and Epcot that they've gotten rid of. They've replaced some of them though.
It's the cast members even don't just exclude the performers. The cast members themselves could be really authorized to engage more, to actually, maybe they've got a little bit of a script lined up or an interaction as the actual performers come through and do things. They could react, and be more of the performance. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm hoping for.
Edge are all supposed to have a backstory.
Yeah.
And where they came from and how they ended up on Batu. And so Ed has a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite part of your career? What really stood out as a fulfilling project?
Oh, hands down, Virtual Jungle Cruise all the way. Primarily because, one of the very first rides that I investigated, when I came off of that ride as a 5-year-old boy, I immediately went to a City Hall and I demanded that they give me the schematics of the rides. I'm not joking. And so, to my surprise, they had a packet that they would hand kids that wanted to be Imagineers back then. And they had all of the information about how, like, for example, I know that Pirates of the Caribbean has a 50-foot ceiling. I know that because it was in this packet that I got that told me all this. They were willing to share that information back then. But the Jungle Cruise, I learned a lot about that attraction as a boy. I found out that the original Imagineers, they had a drawing, but they just kind of lined the river out with sticks, because there wasn't a rule, they just lined it out and cut it out, and that was that. And they were like naming the weeds because they didn't have a lot of plants, exotic plants, so they're just naming the weeds. And
that goes back to a Jungle Cruise joke.
Yeah, probably.
The Jungle
what's the joke?
Your favorite plants? And he goes, "You want to know mine? I like that one." And I like
yeah.
He doesn't name it. He just says, "I like that one." And he's pointing them out. I like one.
Yeah. So I liked Walt's spirit of saying, "I love the African Queen movie, and I want to give you that experience." And originally, he wanted to have real animals. And of course, they were all nocturnal. He found out very quickly they wouldn't appear when he needed them to. Right. And that's when he got the idea for making them mechanical. And then that led to the Tiki Tiki Room, which became the first audio animatronic performers. So that opened up an entirely new form of entertainment, the most 3D character you've ever seen. Still to this day, Walt Disney's idea that he had for animatronics is still more 3D than anything Pixar ever came up with. So for that reason alone, that Jungle Cruise led to Tiki, that led to Pirates, that led to animatronics, that led to me being inspired and doing what I do in the video game industry, and now with my paintings that involve 3D in the process. There's a lot of grounding there for, how that relates to me and what inspired my career, and just also kind of like the wild fly by the seat of your pants. It can be done, and there's no one's going to stop us attitude of that. So when I got to do the virtual version of that, I went in with the same attitude that Walt did. I said, I'm just going to make this. I don't really care about the path. I'm just going to make sure that it's interesting. You know, every bend is interesting. Every dip is interesting. Every waterfall is incredible. You know, like when you go over it. I just wanted every single corner and nook and cranny to be perfectly manicured so that it lived up to the what Walt was thinking. And yeah, so I got to kind of play Walt in a way. So
that's awesome. How
would I not love that? I mean, there's nobody on the planet that if they got an opportunity to design the track of a Disney attraction that wouldn't lose their mind over that.
Amazing.
I mean, it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
How excited do you think Walt would be? And let me tell you, I am a person who hates in some of these Disney groups and Disney pages.
Yeah.
When something new comes out, and I hate when people say Walt would be.
Whoa, Lover is great.
Okay.
Like let's not joke Walt.
Here's what I know where you're going with this question. I was
going to ask you, what do you think Walt? How would you think Walt would feel about the Kilimanjaro safaris and how that brought to life almost his actual intentions for the Jungle Cruise?
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, I didn't really know too much about Walt Disney growing up, surprisingly. I was more of a fan of the Imagineers. Yeah. So I knew about their life story. I didn't know too much about Walt's life story. So when I turned, I think it was 43, I took the Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour and learned a lot about him because I really knew very little. I was looking at the pictures in the books. I wasn't looking mostly at reading Walt's history and figuring that out. So when I went on that Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour, I got to see how he thought. And you know, this man was a genius by all stretches of the word. If anybody deserved that title, it's this man, because he was seeing into the future. And I often speculate, as I'm sure many have, is, you know, what would Walt be like? What would Disneyland be like, or what would the world be like if Walt had achieved that Epcot city that he was thinking about? Because long before Elon Musk came along, he was thinking electric cars. He was thinking, you know, renewable everything in a perfect, you know, he was thinking about efficiency. Mm-hmm. How do we make it efficient and not waste, not destroy? And
the cast members live by is
yeah. So it's no surprise to me that he was very foreshadowing on a lot of things. Anybody that goes into the Walt's Footsteps tour, if you get a chance to go into his apartment, go into his bathroom, because he had the latest. Now this is all stuck in time from the 1950s, right. But it's advanced for the time that it was put in, sure. Because you know he had, you know, he was forward thinking in everything that he did. And so I really think, you know, and think about it, because of Walt Disney existing, despite not graduating from high school, despite not going to college, despite everybody thinking he was insane with everything that he did. I mean, when he first came out and said, I'm going to do a long form animated cartoon, people were like, you're nuts. No one's going to sit through an animated movie. Yeah. And then when he finally got out there and started doing the attractions, Disneyland, you know, he went to the experts, the people that he thought knew everything. And those people said, Walt, you're crazy. Stick to movies. That's what you're good at. But again, the people, when he was in movies, they all thought he was crazy. So, you know.
That's another thing. That's another thing I think that most people don't realize about Walt is that, you know, when they talk about, oh, well, Walt would have done this way with the movies. And I'm like, no, Walt wouldn't even be, if Walt were alive today, if he were somehow alive today, he wouldn't be involved in movies. Walt had a very short attention.
Yeah.
He jumped on something.
One thing to the next. He loved animation, and then the little cartoons were enough. Then he wanted to innovate the animation, and then that wasn't enough. And then he wanted to make a long form movie to pull that off, and he created an entire industry, and then that wasn't enough. And then, you know, movies got expensive to make, and there were big risks, and he couldn't put the company at risk, so he started doing the park. And that wasn't enough. and he wanted to build a city. And then, it's like, wow, this man knew no bounds. He did not know no. He didn't know the word no. Do I want to really speculate? I think Walt wanted to own the planet. He wanted to build a planet. Yeah. He wanted the planet to be Waltized, and
he did. And not only,
in the long run, he did.
I think people think all the time, oh my God, Disney World, they're raising prices. Walt would be a fan. Walt was a capitalist.
Oh, he's a capitalist first and foremost, and I could prove it. I could prove that.
Man.
Yeah, he on Main Street. Some people don't know this, but an Imagineer that laid the asphalt told me, it's like he wanted a specific type of asphalt in Main Street that would get intentionally hotter in the summer. And you're thinking, why in the world would he do that? To punish air-conditioned stores and to keep them so they wouldn't stand in the street and get them into the park.
Right.
So he was a capitalist, and the company isn't leaning that way anymore. Now, there are some things that I could say that I know about Walt that wouldn't change, and that's that every movie that he ever did, there was a clear delineation between good and evil, and it was always good conquering evil.
Yeah. And
Maleficent was a demon, but now I guess if you've got a good backstory, you can justify.
You're not a demon anymore.
You're not a demon anymore. And look at Lucas. When Lucas had Star Wars, who's the biggest bad guy? Vader. He was the big bad guy, and at the end of those movies, he redeemed himself and saved his son. There was a little good in him. Mm-hmm. And now we've got the bad guy is Kylo Ren, the father killer, and you can dress up as your favorite hero. Kylo Ren, the father killer. And I think that it's probably people that are longtime Disney fans. They know these things. They know that it's missing that Walt heart, that Walt viewpoint. The patriotism that was in the park back in the day, the desire to want to inspire children to rocketry and science. And
this week, we simulcasted on the Disney Nerds Podcast Facebook page the Candlelight Processional from Epcot, and talked about that was something that Walt started in Disney. Yeah. The Candlelight Procession,
Christmas card to the world. And we don't want to offend anybody, so we got to kind of be careful in the times that we're in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to accommodate everybody. I mean, the park is connected to everybody, but
sure.
Let's be honest. If you come to Disneyland and you come to America, you're going to get McDonald's the way that McDonald's was intended. But if you go to China, you're going to get a different kind of McDonald's because their tastes are different. And big corporations had to learn that our culture didn't fit. And if you watch the Imagineering story, you'll understand that didn't translate so well, that people were boycotting those changes, that we couldn't just plug and play and think it was going to work because everybody's different. So people coming to our home park, our main park, I still think should have that kind of nostalgia to it, because we want to show what Walt was thinking. I mean, when you go to Disneyland, you're not looking at a theme park, you're looking at what Walt was in love with. I mean, let's be honest, everything to the left side of the park, even to the right side, they weren't connected to licenses,
Right.
I mean, they weren't. Pirates, what movie was being made? He came out with the what is it, Blackbeard's Ghost around then, but it was to market the ride that he was about to do, to connect it. Mm-hmm. The Haunted Mansion, he had a Haunted Mansion drawn in every drawing, all the way back to the Griffith Park little strip that he was hoping for. He loved scaring people, and he loved the Haunted Mansions. It had nothing to do with the movie,
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer's Island, the list is long. Just look at anything. It was only Fantasyland that actually had movies where you can go and ride the movies. But so when I did the Haunted Mansion painting, the reason why it's been so successful is because I think like Walt. I go back and I look at, what would Walt have wanted? He probably, every time I saw the mansion painted on the wall, I always saw it depicted where it was very forced perspective, very cartoony. The characters were cartoonized. And granted, the characters that are in Haunted Mansion are very caricature. They're not real proportions. They're kind of a caricature. They're a Mark Davis caricature. Yeah. But I never saw them painted as they are, even as they are. It was always cartoony. So I said, just again, remembering what Walt had said about the mansion. What did he say about the mansion? You know, he didn't want a rickety old cartoony, scary old house. He wanted a beautiful mansion and the ghosts, all the funny stuff was inside, but the outside, it's real. And they built that off of the Shipley Light Decker house that was in Maryland. I lived out in Maryland. It's long gone. It was demolished. Luckily, as luck would have it, an archivist that was fascinated with the details in the wrought ironwork took a picture of it. And many years later, the Imagineer saw it in their archives and said, I love this. Let's do this. And they literally did a paint over, a drawing where they drew right over it. They didn't really change anything except for the top. And the original Shipley Light Decker house has a square top, and it's more realistic. It's more practical as a lookout, you know, as a little lookout, because, you know, but I call it the baby bottle. They got the baby bottle lookout, and that's only because Herb Ryman's original drawings in New Orleans had that look to it. It was very kind of a soft, and they didn't want it blocky and square. Walt didn't like, he wanted all the streets in Disneyland to flow like a river. He didn't like 90-degree angles. It was very, he didn't like the urban hard cut, everything. So when he designed, you know, when he was overseeing because he saw the mansion before he died, and he was working on some of the ideas. It hadn't been realized, but he had some ghosts, you know.
Sure.
And but you know, he wanted it softened, so that's why it's got that top. So when I did the mansion, I wanted to do it as if this was a real building that existed. This is a real place, because that's the way he wanted it. And I was very subtle on the brush and painted the ghosts as if it was a ghost photo, you know, to make you feel like the ghosts are very real. They're not physical animatronics, but you could see right through those things. Mm-hmm. But they're still detailed, and they still look like the characters that we know and love. And I did the same thing with the Disney World version of that. I wanted it to be a real mansion, because it is. It is. This is not fake. You know, I went to New Orleans to see what Walt was inspired by.
Right.
Yeah. And I found out that the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction was connected to Jean Lafitte. That's why it's called Jean Lafitte's Landing in Disneyland. And this guy, this real pirate in history, he's Johnny Depp. He is the real Jack Sparrow. I mean,
I'm going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
The town I grew up in.
Yeah.
Jean Lafitte.
Oh, you're kidding me, man. Well, you're a Disney nerd, so that just was fate.
He lives in New Orleans.
I live right outside New Orleans. I am 10 minutes from the city of Jean Lafitte.
And then you know that our country's New Orleans and our country's history owes a debt to that pirate.
To Jean Lafitte and the Baratarians. And in the Battle of New Orleans.
Now, exactly. Now, just to people that don't know their history, I'm related to Abraham Lincoln. I'm his exact height. It was Walt's favorite president. Another weird connection I got to Walt. And but Andrew Jackson at the time, he was a pretty terrible guy, really bad guy. But he didn't have a navy that could defend the Gulf, and this guy Jean Lafitte was in prison, and he said, please expunge my record, clean it, and I'll use all of my armada. I know these waters real good, and I'll fight for you. Just wipe my slate clean. And of course, he did a great job, but then after his slate was clean, you know what happened? He went right back to pillaging and plundering and right back to it. So, I mean, he was Jack Sparrow, let's be honest. So when you
grew up in, it's called Jean Lafitte, or Lafitte. On the other side of the bayou is the city of Barataria.
Right.
Along the Barataria waterway, they go straight to the Gulf of Mexico.
Exactly. So
in a small shrimping community that is basically where Jean Lafitte and his pirates traveled.
Yeah. So when I did the mansion piece, and I got to hang out at Xavier Atencio's house with him, he was definitely in very, very getting close to the end of his life, and it was very difficult for him to talk, and I videotaped that so for prosperity, just because guys like Xavier, guys like Bob Gurr are truly treasures to the Disney community and should be seriously listened to in anything that Disney does in the future, because these people have a way of thinking that is just being lost to history. And I told Xavier about the changes that were happening to his story, and he was none too happy about it, primarily because the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, the story was about good conquering evil. As I mentioned earlier, that's what Walt was about. And if you know how the story goes now, Johnny Depp gets away with the treasure at the end. So, it wasn't about endorsing the idea that piracy is good and that you can get away with thievery and you can rob people of their treasures and get off with it. It was really, they're really bad eggs. It's in the gosh darn lyrics, as Xavier pointed out to me. And so, again, I'm very much a purist, and I don't like that the Johnny Depp character is in the Pirates of the Caribbean for that exact reason, because I think it changes the narrative of the original story, which is that, look, kids, this is not you don't want to be a pirate. They're really bad people. And there's evidence in that story. If you look at the storytelling, when I do a painting, I like fully understanding what the original Imagineers intended, because very often it gives me great ideas for a painting, because then I can fit into that idea very snugly without, that's why I know it's going to get approved, because I'm in that pocket, because storytelling is number one for Imagineering. And if you look at the original Pirates of the Caribbean story, well, what was it really about? Well, it's foreshadowing, you're seeing all of the fights and battles of skeletons, and it's really kind of like you're going back in time and seeing, how did that all go down? How did these skeletons and these bad things happen? Mm-hmm. And we find out very quickly, pirates were robbing and pillaging, and then what happens? They're getting so drunk that they're burning down the town. What happens? They're so stupid, they're so bad that, in an ironic twist, they lock themselves accidentally in a jail, and now they're getting punished for their thievery and their bad behavior. It's kind of like what goes around comes around, and that iconic scene with the dog is like telling you this, don't do this. And just in case that story wasn't crystal clear to you that pirates are bad, the very next scene is drunken pirates about to shoot you and blow you to smithereens, just in case it wasn't clear. So to have the very last scene in that attraction, Johnny Depp getting away with the treasure, saying, I'm just going to celebrate it all, it doesn't sit well with me. And I don't think they thought that through very well. And I'll never paint a Johnny Depp character in any of the Pirates of the Caribbean for that reason, because I want to stick to what Walt was thinking and give people what they want. The original captain of that ship in that ride, which was Blackbeard.
Right.
And, that's the original pirate.
Yeah.
And they were Spaniards that they were attacking, not white, wig wearing people. That's not that town. Look at the decor. It's not that town, So again, I'm a purist, and I want to be pure to Walt's intentions. And every time I do a painting, I'm thinking, well, I do what all the Imagineers did after Walt died, which is, what would Walt do? And I really seriously think about that, and it's resonating with people. I released 4 paintings. So we got the mansion, actually both mansions, and then I did a Pirates of the Caribbean with the cannon, the pirate ship and the fort scene. Mm-hmm. And then I've got a riverboat piece. And if you look at
the riverboat piece,
that sold in the first 20 minutes of my very first signing at the park. And what a wonderful, what a wonderful nod to Walt, that, I really thought about how he would want that depicted. And when you see a painting of mine, you're not looking at a painting, you're looking at a memory that I had as a child of how I see those attractions. I get a little choked up about it, because when I see that riverboat piece, that is a memory that I had of how I saw the riverboat coming at me as a little 5-year-old boy. That's how I saw it. Big, grand, real, majestic, just this thing coming out of the mist, at me. I wanted to go on that, And on opening day, everybody wanted to go on that, and it was taking on water because so many people wanted to be on it, and that's how they figured out the capacity of the attraction from there on out.
So I saw that, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I have one interesting comment that I'll tell you that I don't know if you know, and then I have a question.
Sure.
The comment is that did you know that the Haunted Mansion in Walt Disney World has a hard story break in it? Like, it breaks. If you know it, you're like, oh god.
I don't know. I've seen the ride throughs with the mansion, and I don't like looking at those things too much because I want to actually, like I said earlier with the Galaxy's Edge stuff, you want to experience it. It's terrible to look at an attraction that way.
Spoil it for you, but you know that when they were building the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, they had already knew they were going to build one in Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
They basically made two of everything, and they kind of duplicated, and there's some differences between them, but there's a spot in the mansion in Walt Disney World where you're in the attic, and eventually you come out of the attic and you fall into the graveyard.
Yeah.
And so when that happens in Walt Disney World, you can look up and you see the outside the building.
Oh, okay.
You see the window and the roof line of the building you just came out of, but it's completely in the style of the Haunted Mansion in Disney, and not in.
Yeah, because they built that facade, and when you come out, you see the little outside facade. So they probably had the same thing.
So that facade is the same as Disneyland, but it doesn't look like anything building you into, because the outside of those buildings are so different.
Look, one of the things I've discovered working on some of the Disney attractions is that no matter how much of a great idea you've got, you ultimately have to make it practical, and you have to make it work, financially. And there's decisions that you hate having to do, but you run out of money, and you just got to figure something out.
To me, it's not a story break. It is in the grand scheme of things. I think it's a cool detail. I mean,
there's cost-effective, money-saving reasons for a lot of things that Disney did, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of those cost-cutting tricks turned out to be the best thing that could have happened because it forced them to be creative. It
was pointed out to me on the Marceline the Magic Kingdom tour, which is all about Walt. I'm assuming that tour is very similar to the walking in Walt's footsteps. Obviously, in Walt Disney World, you can't walk in Walt's footsteps, but Marceline the Magic Kingdom tour is all about Walt and how he inspired his memories inspired that park.
And I have a lot of the same history as him. My family grew up in Missouri. My mom was born one city over from Marceline, literally right down the street, which is very eerie. I found that out last year. Actually, didn't know that until recently. Yeah, you think I know where my mom was born, but I didn't know. And I was raised on a ranch. My grandfather had a ranch in California. This is where they all moved out to make their fortune. So again, I've got that connection. I'm related to Abraham Lincoln. I'm his exact height, 6'4". And, that was Walt's favorite, president. And I was fascinated by miniatures and trains and rocketry. And a lot of that probably came from reverse osmosis of me and Disney, but even before I saw Disneyland, I was into that stuff. And I even have the same favorite, song is same as his, and I like the same foods. It's very crazy. I mean, I was raised poor, so my favorite food is chili, and it happened to be the same brand as the one he liked. He mixed it with some other brand that doesn't exist anymore, but it's Denison's chili, and I like it. And I used to, my ex-girlfriends would tell you I'd take a can of chili on trips because I hated eating out and about. I didn't like expensive food. I just hate it. I hate expensive food. Why are you going to eat something that's going to go right through you in an hour and pay all that for what? So I'm such a simple guy when it comes to these things. So when I went on the Walt's Footsteps tour, I was kind of giggling at myself. And then I started having some panic attacks because, what I'm doing right now with Friendlians is so much like what he was going through. I'm reliving a lot of the problems that he ran into, the curses and the benefits. And we can talk about Friendlians if you want, but
yeah, give us a good overview of what's
Friendlians. So I looked out there and I thought, where is the modern day Mr. Rogers for kids? And I'm a single father. Now I've got a fiance, but I had to raise my 3 kids, by myself, and I've got an older boy from a marriage, and I had to figure out what to do. When you're sitting there and you're alone and you don't have any help, and you've got 2 brand new twin baby girls and a 4-year-old boy that needs potty training, and you're trying to have a career, you're like, where's the help? Where's the cartoon or the show or the product that's going to be backing up my play as a parent? So I created the Friendlian project, and I didn't know how to animate, and I learned how to animate, and I didn't have a budget, so I voiced the characters just like Walt. I found that out later, that he had done that on his own project. And I went up to Walt's family museum, and I was listening in on one of the calls. You have the little phones, you put your ear up, and it was him saying, back in the day we had to puppeteer. It was puppeteering, and it wasn't really animation, it was puppeteering. And that's pretty much how I was doing it at the beginning, because I wasn't an animator, so I had to kind of pose the characters, and then I made renders of those things, and I turned them into puppets and did it as Flash animation originally, just kind of moving things, and had mouths opening and closing, not too different from how the original Mickey Mouse cartoons were made, just with modern day technology. But I was voicing them, writing the scripts, animating them, doing everything. I was like a one-man Pixar. And then eventually I learned how to animate in 3D, and I can now have pretty good, decent talking head type stuff. But then this guy came along. It's very much like a Wozniak meets Steve Jobs moment, even though I don't claim to be as smart as Steve. But it was very much like that. This guy that was very introverted, very shy. His name's Rod Nakamoto. He invented the first sound card for Apple. It's called the Mockingbird back in the 80s. And he's the reason why we have sophisticated sound in electronics. And he came up with this little $5 device the size of a pack of gum. And he wanted to make talking toys, but he had this very kind of pedestrian use for it. He wanted to have like 100 of these little small devices down every aisle in a grocery store. So it connected to a server that would, Wi-Fi out little marketing pitches when you went by the product, because he'd seen Minority Report and thought that would be great.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, and I said, do you realize what you have? Look at the tiki room in your living room. And he's like, oh my God, yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. So I started working with him and kind of shanghaied everything, just like Steve Jobs shanghaied Wozniak's computer. And I just saw the marketing possibilities for it. And I said, dude, we could have toys that interact with movies, games, and rides in real time. We could have 1 million toys performing a tiki room like show, with a new show every hour on the hour, forever. And so we worked to that goal, and we managed to get 7 prototypes, and we could do it. We don't hope to do it. We did it. Now I can have toys performing the Tiki Room show or the Country Bear Jamboree in your living room right now through a little $5 device we could put into any toy. And so the hope was that we can connect these things to the Friendlian project, so that when a kid is hearing a lesson, a little 2-minute long lesson, that eventually will have a toy that's in their arms, that's interacting with the cartoons that they see on the show. And we could do that right now. It just happens to take a lot of money to get there. And as you know, Walt would say, it takes a lot of money to make things happen. And, I'm running the same problems that he did. When he tried to get the Tiki Room funded, his own company wouldn't give him the money for it. Mm-hmm. His own company wouldn't authorize that. And so he leveraged his own home and funded it himself. I think it was $1 million to fund that thing. And that's why still to this day, it's called Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, because it's Walt. Yeah, his own company didn't believe what he was doing. Now, it's everybody knows what animatronics are, but wow, and I'm running into the same problem. I showed this to a couple investors, and they're like, I don't get it. Don't we have Furbies? This is a Furby, right? This is a Teddy Ruxpin, right? I'm like, would you ever call Tiki Room the Teddy Ruxpin experience? Come on. This is a quality, sophisticated story. It's the most complicated content delivery system ever created on the planet. and you want to call it a Furby. I don't think so. So I'm running into all the same problems. I can't find somebody that I need a guy in a hot rod that's going to come by like Steve Jobs and give me the money. So we're working on that. We've got some interested parties, and we're hoping that, we can convince some people. And there's some fires in the, irons in the fire that will do this for us if we can convince enough people to take that risk. But it's a risk, but if we can pull it off, then we could do exactly what Disney's doing in Tiki Tiki Room. But we could literally create Toy Story for real right now. And it's not a hope, it's not a dream. We've done it, and we just need somebody to get it out there in mass. So the Friendly Project is about teaching children family values and life lessons using evidence-based research on the best way to teach children how to be problem solvers. It's probably something that Walt would have really enjoyed talking about out there. And so you can download the app. We're the #1 rated app on the app stores right now. And for $1-2 price, you can download the app and you get access to all these little 2-minute long cartoons. They're very short because the attention span of kids is very tiny. Mm-hmm. And we want to get kids excited about being good human beings, kind of like what Tomorrowland was trying to do to inspire kids to greatness. I'm trying to do that on a lot of different subjects. So combating bullying, talking about childhood obesity. We've got Chef Gigi. She's a celebrity chef, goes on the news and does demos on a lot of different networks. She came on and wrote us a bunch of recipes, and we got a little robot that's cooking them for you, teaching kids how to cook the food, how to grow food from seed to harvest. And ultimately, we've got an exercise program that we're putting in there where we've got my kids doing jumping jacks in front of a blue screen, but it looks like they're on a space station, and you can customize the workout to picking those videos, like just the jumping jack video, just the running and jogging video, and you can make a playlist for your kid, and it'll play all those exercises in one after the other. So you literally can create your own workout for the kids. And again, we've got all these really wonderful lessons that teach children how to be good people. It's very, very much a Mr. Rogers on steroids, but without the steroids.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I looked around, where's the lifestyle brand where every product inspires my kid to do something that I want them to do as a parent? Where's the comforter set that has the instructions on how to make your bed worked into the beautiful artwork? Mm-hmm. Where is the light switch that reminds my kid and makes it a game to turn the lights off? Where's the soap that inspires the kid to put the soap back in the dish? Well, I've got those things worked out. I've got products that we hopefully, if I can get this up and running like Disneyland, where I've got products that are really, really innovative that would be things that even the parents would want. You would want my soap. It looks like a crystal, like the Superman crystal, and we got 4 of them in a little cigar case. And you take the top off, and you got the 4 crystals. And how do we get kids to put the soap back? Easy. Because it's a crystal, you can roll it in your hand very easily, right? Mm-hmm. And then you want to put it back, because when you put it back, because and it looks like a crystal. Imagine those marbled, like a marble that's like a cat's eye marble. That's what the soap looks like. It's really beautiful and colorful and see-through with all of these little cloud-like marble type. Yeah. And so you want to put it back because you don't throw away the packaging in my company. All of the packaging is a toy. So you put the soap back into its slot, and it has a little LED light that lights up the soap for awesome. So it glows like the Superman crystal. And yeah. So that's how you get kids to put it back so it doesn't melt into the sink. You create. So it costs the same as normal soap. Well, maybe a little bit more because it's really cute soap. We could probably sell the soap for like $20 for the soap. But we got 4 different soap bars in there and this really awesome case and I prototyped it already. And so stuff like that. So we want to get like the toys kind of being a surrogate helper to the parents, so that when the parents are working, they could still log on to the network when the kid's at the babysitter, and they can give their kids something to think about, something they can maybe talk about when they get back together, something that's supporting your parental ideas, and we don't get any politics or religion in there. It's lessons that if you heard them, all parents would agree are good things for kids to hear. Like, don't lie, brush your teeth, wash your hands,
kind.
Basic stuff that seems to be a problem for
good habits.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems with the millennials is they don't have life skills. They're panicking because they don't have life skills. There's all these adulting classes that are popping up, and don't laugh, but it's the reality we live in. It's sad, that this is happening to our culture, but just kind of get back to the basics, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's what Walt was all about, that simple, big, bright, beautiful future that he was hoping for, that we don't talk about anymore.
Yes.
So the future looks scary, and everybody's upset with politics, and the world's going to end in 10 years. I mean, wow. I think if I was to speculate what Walt would say, I'd say he'd be really, really sad and really disappointed in our culture and how we think about problem solving and the lack of self-reliance that we are providing our kids. And, that's where I hope that I can have some kind of an impact. And I hope people, even if you don't have kids, download the app for $2 and support what I'm doing. All you have to do is go to friendlians.club, and that's spelled friend, LIENS.club. I wanted to do .club again to honor Walt because he had the Mickey Mouse Club, and I wanted this to be a club. So friendlians.club, and download it and support what I'm trying to do, because the more people, if I can get 100,000 downloads on that, it'll make the business sustainable, and then we can get investors to help us make the toys, and then wow, you'll have the tiki room at your living. I'll have Toy Story for real for you. And I don't hope to do it. I've done it. So if you want to try to make some magic here happen, and support it,
For sure. My granddaughter's 5, and this sounds wonderful for her.
Now, and that's the thing. The age group is for 3 to about, I'd say, 7-year-olds for the cartoons, but we have decided to start doing content in there that's geared towards parents. So we're getting experts out there in the world. So I got this fitness guru, health and fitness guru, and she came on, and this is parent-only content, meaning you can't share it to the child's playlist. They'll never see it. So we're talking directly to the parents, and with these experts that we're bringing in, one of them, and if you downloaded it now, you could see it, where she's talking about how do you make a perfect lunch that's healthy for them, that the kids will like, that won't break the bank. Like, wouldn't you want to know how to make a really good, yummy lunch? Now, what does a nutritionist give their kids that doesn't break the bank, that's good for them, that they'll eat? I mean, I don't know about you, but I struggle with that every day, trying to figure out what my kids want. And they're making it easy for you by giving you some advice. And then we have a Kung Fu martial artist. He's a multi-degree black belt. He's going to come on and show kids how to defend themselves against kidnappers and attackers and just abuse in general, which happens in households,
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? And real important things that I think parents would love to have an expert there. And for $2, you can't really go wrong. I'm trying to put as much content and value in there so that you can say, $2. I mean, come on, we turn ourselves into farm animals and with filters for more money than I think what I'm trying to give people.
True.
I'd like to believe I'm better than a farm animal filter, with what I'm doing. Yeah, and when you see it, if you want to download it just to see it, just understand that I animated it. I voiced these characters. I wrote these things. I wrote some of the music. I'm doing it all by myself. I'm High Works and Walt Disney combined, and all the animators, all the Imagineers. I'm the 9 old men in one thing. I'm doing it by myself. I have no help. Now, I do have a couple volunteer female voice actors because obviously, for obvious reasons, despite it being almost 2020 and we are where we're at with gender. I got some really wonderful people that also do podcasts, and they came in and I asked this one girl that's on, she works with iHeartRadio. She's got about, something like 100,000, 200,000, maybe even 600,000. She's got almost 1 million followers on there. And I thought that'd be a good marketing trick. Because if I can convince her to come on and talk about something, then maybe she'd share it out to her fan base.
Right.
And I get some downloads. So I thought that was but her fan base is mostly, teenagers that are nerding out about Star Wars. So they don't have kids and they don't care. So it didn't really work out, but nevertheless, she turned out to be a really talented performer because she's an on-air voice talent. And so I said, what do you want to talk about? And she said, well, what about public speaking? Getting kids to conquer their fears about talking in front of others. Because when I was a little girl, I was always afraid. We had to get in front of the class. I'm like, that's great. So it's perfect. It's perfect, right? So we found something for somebody that you wouldn't think is relevant to my project. She became very relevant to my project. And ultimately, we want to have lessons. And there's a couple. We got a thing called the 5 Destinies. There are 5 core subjects that we need to talk about: self, peer, grown up, the future, and universe. So under self, we want to get kids feeling good about who they are physically and mentally. Under peer, we talk about how to combat bullying, how to make friends, what's a real friend, how do kids interact with kids their own age. Under the universe destiny, we're talking about the planet and what's a rock and why do we need rocks and those things. And then under the future category, we've got every possible career that you can imagine. We want to talk about that. We have experts that come in that get kids excited about whatever that career might be. And so she came in and we did a couple lessons. We did one, conquering your fear of talking in front of others. The other one was like paying attention and having listening skills. How do you listen? And it's really cool because we got this one little character that I created flying by the window doing a spacewalk, and we make it as if the audience is being distracted, and she's like, hey, I'm over here. Case in point moment. And so I like kind of using Walt's philosophy of like entertaining people, and if you learn along the way, that's that's what he did with all the nature videos.
Sure.
Most people don't know how those nature videos came about. Do you guys know how the nature videos came about? Why they were made? Disney nerds, anybody? You want to put it out to your listeners if anybody knows?
Everybody's commenting.
Well, I thought that was just because of his.
Why? Yeah. Why do you think he did the videos, those films?
That was mostly because of his personal travels.
Nope. No. I mean, he loved animals. Don't get me wrong. He loved animals, but the purpose behind. Yeah. Anybody got a good answer on listening in?
No one's answered yet. I haven't seen anything. I was thinking it was because he wanted more realistic animals in his animation.
Yes. Well, that is one of the main reasons. Yes, he wanted to teach his animators how to draw from life. So he put them back into school, and he wanted to bring the animals right into the studio, right in front of them. So Bambi and all that stuff was right in front of them. But they quickly found out, Walt said, that these animals, they're not behaving like they would in nature.
Right, they bring a deer in for Bambi.
Yeah, and they would be timid and scared and looking around and like, this is not natural. Like we could figure out how they look, but we can't figure out how they act.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when he sent a team out to go and film in nature all these amazing animals. And then when he got these things back, he says, well, geez, we got all this footage. We could probably tell us there's a story to be told here. This is a story. We could piece these things together and tell a story of this. And he repurposed it, and turned it into something. That, again, that's like the credit to Walt Disney, the man that created more jobs than all of our American presidents combined. You have Walt to thank for, being the greatest job creator in history on the planet.
Right.
This is a man that just, I don't want to throw things away. How do I use it? And he took that, what would have been stock, whatever, and made it something. So we have that, and he wasn't going in to teach you anything. So it was more about like, can I make this funny and cute so you'll pay attention to animals? Whereas
films have become some of my very favorite things. Like, I always watch them. I love seeing the old ones. Like with Disney Plus, now that everything old is new again, I'm watching that stuff up.
But I think that the new Disney, the current Disney, the charm is missing that you can't get back, that you only got with Walt being in charge. you'll never get that charm that Walt was so keen at understanding. And that's what I'm on a continuous search for, is to find out, how do I make this charming? How do
I see it in some movies. I don't see it in all. I think movies like Coco.
Oh, Pixar. Hey, if we're going to talk about Pixar, we're talking about Walt reincarnated. We're talking about a company that actually does get storytelling. And I'd even say that, that rubbed off on Disney feature animation with Frozen. A lot of people hate that movie, but I think it was a massive triumph and probably the best thing to come along since Beauty and the Beast or Lion King, when that was the kind of the reemergence of Disney doing storytelling well. Mm-hmm. And that's why I did do a Frozen piece. The directors asked me if I would do a piece for them.
I would say Tangled is more charming than
Frozen. But the songs weren't memorable. The songs, what was missing was those songs. You weren't humming those songs when you came out, and everybody was humming "Let It Go" and "Summer" and all those great songs.
Yes, I get it.
They had that missing component. It had the look, and it had the Disney formula, but it didn't have the charm that you got.
More memorable songs in Frozen. But I would argue that I See the Light is probably better than any song in Frozen.
Well, and keep in mind, that was when Disney finally started getting into their own and getting back to what they were known for. And I think that was the transition after.
Probably was the transition.
Yeah. Pixar, and then they homogenized and they came together, and that was rubbing off. And I think they elevated what Disney feature was missing at the time.
Back there. I think I love Moana.
Yeah, I do love Moana. Yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah. I think that was another massive hit.
Best.
Yeah, but then you've got Aladdin, and you've got things where they're regurgitating every hit that they've ever had, and hope even the ones that aren't hits, and they're just remake. And I think the fan base is getting upset with them about this stuff. And there's hit and misses. They're profitable, but
the fan base is getting upset, but the box office isn't showing that. And they're killing it. I just read an article about that, and it's not just Disney doing that, and
it's everybody.
And part of the reason is because of the depth of home movies.
Yeah.
You remarket these things, and now they have to find different ways to make up for that. And one of the ways is to save marketing dollars. So instead of having to market some brand new movie that nobody's ever heard of, now we can just market Aladdin, the live.
Yeah. Well, look at Aladdin. I mean, look at Atlantis. I worked on Atlantis, did the art direction for the video game. I was flown down to Disney Studios to see the dailies and the work in progress. And I remember sitting next to Don Hahn, and he elbows me and said, after seeing that massive scene of the submarine exploding, underwater, and he was nudging me and saying, "Hey, you could do that back with your team, right? You could do that scene, right?" Video games, we didn't have the budget to do stuff like that and have it hold up. But I found very quickly that this new Disney, they were looking at properties because of all the toys and the video games they can make, and they weren't really thinking about the core thing, which is, can we tell a great story? And when you've got characters, getting knocked out, elderly people getting hit in that movie, it was kind of cringeworthy, not something I think Disney would have done. Had he been alive, he would have nixed stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And and then again, and I got to work with Steven Spielberg, I got to hear what his secret of his success was, and it was that, every movie that's been successful, it was stories that people were already telling themselves long before the storyteller came along and told them. E.T., people were like, "Where's the happy, friendly alien?" Toy Story, they were talking to you. Everybody thought their toys were talking when you left, as a kid. And then, when your parents are telling you to clean up the toys, you're wishing you had a time machine, go back in time, see what kind of a kid they were. And when you're reading the most read book in history, the Bible, the most translated book, and you want to see those artifacts being found, those powerful, godly artifacts. And thank God for Indiana Jones. And but hey, Disney, did Mars need moms? No. And thank you for giving me 15 minutes of Walt Disney's Tomorrowland, only to give me an hour and 45 minutes of me feeling bad about myself as a human being, That's not what I wanted. I did not want to feel bad about my future that I caused this.
Right.
That's not why I go to movies, to pay somebody to talk down to me and make me feel bad. So yeah. So when I saw the trailer, I'm like, wow, this is going to be incredible. When I saw the movie, I very quickly said, this is going to bomb like a rock, and my instincts have been right. So every time I look at a new property, I always ask that Steven Spielberg question to myself, like, were people already asking for this in their minds, and and these people delivering that? So when I do a painting, I've got the same concept in my mind. I'm like, how would people, because these attractions and these things have been painted to death, like, how can I give my perspective of what people wanted and just nobody's given it to them? So I think, and luckily, by complete sheer luck, I'm connecting with people that feel just the same way I do. They wanted the mansion depicted in a particular way. They wanted the riverboat classy and gorgeous and coming right at you as the sun sets, and those are the things you live for when you go to Disneyland, those magic moments where just the clouds line up and you got this Disney sky behind something that you care about. And I put that in all of my things, and I'm hoping I'm connecting with people and giving people kind of what Walt would have wanted, But we're coming up to the 2-hour mark, and I'm not worth the $20 movie ticket price. Sorry, I'm just.
You commented earlier about the African Queen. A couple of months ago, you were doing watercolors, and you did watercolor of African Queen.
Yes, well, because it's my favorite movie,
You did a bunch. I actually suggested Gone with the Wind because that's my favorite movie.
And then I did a Gone with the Wind. I've never seen the movie Gone with the Wind. I hate to. I've never seen the movie. I've never had anybody willing to watch it with me. But I plan.
Watch it with you. I'll come watch it with you. We'll
I think my fiance might have a little problem with.
No, she'll join us. Everybody needs to see that movie.
She's seen it. It's just a long movie. There's a lot of things that still inspire me about the classics. How do we get that classic feel? Because I think there's, like I said, knowing all the original Imagineers and talking to them and understanding what their vision was of Disneyland is radically different than what I think the modern Imagineers, how they approach things. It's so different. It's just wildly different. They were simple. It was simple stuff, simple ideas. It wasn't complicated.
That's why it's important to have somebody like Kim Irvine around.
Yeah, she grounds everybody and brings them back to reality and
message. The original ideas and ideals.
Yeah. Well, you got Tony Baxter. He had a lot of great ideas too, and he has that Walt spunk, but he also had bad ideas too. He wanted to do Westcott, watch the Imagineering story. He wanted to do Westcott. I think it would have been just as boring as the Epcot,
Favorite.
You are doing.
Now it's great, but back in the day when it first came out, it was not too much really going on there.
Well,
you're doing a lot of houses right now. So you've done Haunted Mansion. Recently done the Goonies house.
Oh yes, for the owner of the house. I did that for the owner.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have any other historical, houses coming out?
It's funny you should ask because I'm a massive fan of Zemeckis and a huge fan of Back to the Future. And there's one building in there that I have to do. And
Tower? Clock Tower?
Nope. No, that's actually on the back lot of Universal Studios. And if I was to do a painting of that, I don't have permission to do that. That's a fabricated, made up thing. This is a real home that actually exists. It's in Pasadena, and it's the Gamble House. So I approached the curator of the Gamble House, and we're talking about it, and they're all up for it. And I'm probably going to do the Gamble House as a painting and do a signing there, and literally donate the work of art to them with literally no profits going to me, and it'll support the Gamble House and keep it as beautiful as it is, forever and ever. I like doing that. I like. There's these really beautiful houses that actually exist, and with the Goonies house in particular, just to tell you a little bit about why I did that painting, is that when the movie production ended, as often with all movies, they don't care about anything that's left after. When I worked on Titanic, the whole thing was stripped and brought down to the ground and destroyed. There's not that too much. There's bits and pieces still around, but So when the owner of that property, before the 25th anniversary, got a hold of it, it was going to be condemned. And the Goonies house, condemned. It had rats. It had water leaking through every room. And she put about, I think she said she put about $300,000 of her own money to bring it back to life. And then the 25th anniversary happened, and it put Goonies back on the map, and she had 1,000 people coming to her home. Can you imagine 1,000 people showing up at her every single day?
Yeah.
So, and the city erected,
and that's
well, the city erected a sign at the bottom of their driveway that said, "This is the Goonies house," and yet they wouldn't allow her to do a bed and breakfast, allow people, make money off of it, and people could stay overnight. They wouldn't give her the rights, the permission to turn it into a business of any kind. And yet the rest of the city, and Astoria, shame on you if anybody's from a politician here ever sees this video, shame on you for exploiting that house, sending people to that house on tours, and not letting that woman make any sort of a dime off of what you guys do, because they have the jail, all the stuff is there, and everybody makes money off of it except for that woman. So when I heard her story and I found out that people were coming up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and ripping pieces off of that house, it infuriated me. It infuriated me, being a person that loved that movie. It's my favorite movie. So I did the paint. Yeah, I did the painting and gave her full printing rights, full permission to print that until the cows come home, because it's her house that's depicted there. I made sure not to put anything connected to the movie. There's no characters in there. There's nothing that's original in there. And anybody that comes to her house now, she's got posters and prints, $20 and $60, different sizes, and you can buy something from her, and that money goes to helping her keep that house,
maintain the house
protected.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I'm trying to do the same thing for Walt Disney's original studio that's out in, the original Laugh-O-Grams. They managed the city wanted to demolish it, and they managed to get the Disney Family Museum contributed money, and they've managed to save it from, and they brought it back to life, the building. But now they need about $2 million to do what they wanted to do inside, and turn it into an animation school and talk about Walt's life, and turn it into something that's of value to the city. And, I'm hoping that at some point I can do a painting that will, or, draw attention to them, go to their website and donate money to them, because, that's Walt's history right there, being just sitting there rotting away. And, that matters to me. I actually managed to save Walt's uncle's house that was going to be demolished. It was going to be brought to the ground. It was where he did the animation of Mickey Mouse for the first time in his uncle's garage. And that garage has been since relocated to Garden Grove, I think. And so that part where all the magic actually happened was saved. And it's now something you can visit, but it's not connected to the original property. Well, the original property was about to be demolished, and I found out about that, and I couldn't believe it. So I called the city, and I got involved. I talked to the city and said, "Look, did you know that this is connected to Walt's history?" They really didn't know. I was kind of shocked. And once I found out that these people didn't know, that's when I said, well, what can we do to turn this into a historic location? They said, well, if you can prove providence, great. So I got Joanna Miller, Walt Disney's granddaughter, involved. I told her about it. And she had lots of documentation connecting that property to Walt and his uncle and all that stuff. And it was saved. And the people that bought the house that were going to demolish it and build something else had no clue that it was connected to Walt Disney. Had they known, they wouldn't have. As soon as I talked to them, they said, you're kidding me. I said, no. Major things went down there. In fact, that whole street is important, because that's where he was shooting with the little girl. And right after he got Mickey Mouse and they were doing well, him and Roy moved right across the street from that house, So a lot went down right in that little section there, and we need to save that and preserve it. So it was really kind of a proud moment. Nobody knows that I did that, but I got Joanna involved, and now it's saved. It's been saved, and it's a benefit to the owners, because they get money from the city to maintain it because now it's a historic location. So it really worked out great for them. It was a win-win. I love win-wins where everybody makes out.
Sure. Awesome.
We need to savor and protect that history, as a Disney nerd.
Absolutely.
So are there any questions that anybody had?
We are at feature length.
Yeah, we're feature length. I don't have any questions popping up. Marianne says you were obsessive about getting on. It was funny, your story about how you got your start.
That
your obsessiveness was funny. But
I was just
story is just believe in yourself and go after what you want.
Yeah, if I can give anybody any advice out there, people get up and they accept awards at Oscars and they always say, look, believe in your dreams, but it's true. It's true because throughout my life, if you got to believe that you can achieve anything and that impossible before you can ever try for it. You have to believe it in your mind. And so I got all that from Walt. No doubt, hands down, Walt is the reason why I don't understand what the word no means. And that's what's allowed me to hold 30 professional occupations at the highest level, from voiceover to director to you name it. I've done I'm a one-man Pixar. I've done all these crazy things because I never said no to anything. I took on those challenges and pulled it off most of the time. And the failures were good things that I learned from those mistakes. And so if people are out there and they're wondering, can you do anything? You really can. If you have the passion to pursue it and you're willing to put in the work to do it. And maybe that's a bumper sticker right there. I didn't intend to rhyme, but but that's true. And Walt was right. And he hated people that said, no, it can't be done. He hated those people. He fired those people. And good. We need people like that in Disney right now that are willing to say, you suck. And you're out because you are bucking the idea that it can't be done, because it can be done. Mm-hmm. How do we do it? That's the trick.
For sure.
People will tell me, no, I can't do something. And I reply, watch me.
Watch. Yeah, you just gave me the best. Now you challenged me. Challenge me. I dare you. Say I can't do it and watch it happen.
Watch it happen.
So yeah, I've struggled in my life. There's highs and lows, and there's parts where I've had a couple bucks in my account, and I'm getting low on my account right now. It's tough, having a family with kids, and I'm trying to figure out how to make money with art. But I just keep barreling through because I know that if I do quality work, people will show up and hire me. So it's all, do your best. Look yourself in the eye at the end of the day and say, did I do my very best? If the answer is yes, then nobody in the world can fault you, and you got to give yourself a break, because most people, they're their worst critics. You're the hardest on yourself, and sometimes you got to give yourself a break and say, did I do my very best today? I did. Okay. And if it's a no to that,
then you do better tomorrow.
You know what to do tomorrow. It just tells you what to do. So you don't have to wonder, where am I going? I know where to go,
Exactly.
And it's one step in front of the other. It's how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And every problem in your life should be approached with that idea, that methodology of, here's the problem at the top of the list. Now let me brainstorm every possible solution, and they may not all be good solutions, but I'm going to brainstorm what I could do, what I can do. And if that page is blank at the end of you sitting there for hours, then let it go. People don't know how to let problems go. They think they have control over something and they don't. Mm-hmm. That's where most stress comes from. People thinking they have control over their problem, and they're not even in the mix. They're like wondering about what your kids are going to do and thinking you have control over them. You only have so much control, and at some point you got to let go as a parent and say, let them fly, and if they break some eggs, it's okay. I'll be there to pick them up. But you got to let go of a lot of things, and I think Walt had that philosophy in his mind. He just didn't say no to anything. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and no one was going to stop him. Sure. And I think if he had gone bankrupt with Disneyland, he still would have made Disneyland at some point in his life. If he lived a life, he would have made it no matter what. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that gave your listeners and audience a lot to think about.
Yeah, I know me and Charlotte enjoyed it. I'm sure
I did.
Enjoyed it, and I know we're gonna pull the audio off of here and put it out as a as one of our regular audio podcasts, and which will be available on iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, and the big things are coming down the pipe for me. I can't talk about two of them. They're really, really big, like Disneyland sized big stuff. Like you would be
talking about that off the air earlier.
Yeah. It's. I told you, so it's. You get the idea. It's massive, massive stuff that's going to happen to me next year.
We're definitely we'll definitely have you back on. So
yeah, and then you'll have a lot of listeners tuning in to want to know what's happening next, because this is big Walt Disney magical stuff that is kind of hard to believe that it's happening to me.
I'm so excited.
It's just amazing. My life is so crazy. I don't know what's going to happen next, but. It's truly Disney magic, no doubt about that, 100%. So can't wait to talk about it.
So much for coming on and spending some time with us. We truly appreciate it. I know.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
Enjoyed it. Yeah. Truly appreciate it. And
thanks for having me. If anybody leaves questions, I'll come back and answer them later. So just shoot them to me and I'll answer your questions later. So
sounds good.
That sounds great.
Thanks.
All right.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Disney nerds. I love you. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.